All right, it's your boy Sean Goody, and we back for the weekly market review. We're gonna keep it short and sweet today and get right into it. First of all, disclaimers. This isn't financial advice. Wink, wink. Um, but really, it's not. It's just technical analysis. However much money you decide to put up in these trades and all that stuff, that's going to be on you. So that's the disclaimer out the way. Let's go over the three markets and then maybe we'll hop in and see what's hot, just so we can get a little action. It's been kind of dry past couple weeks, but looking back on last week, we ended up getting that bull bar that we thought we might get, especially on that daily chart. It was a little more obvious on the daily chart that we might get some, at least a test of this support. So we'd be looking to see into next week if we either continue higher. I would think that we'd still try to test this EMA, but given that we had like a short-term trend, break outside, move to a new low, we tried to go higher and then it reversed. I could still see the market trying to test this low at least twice, trying to test it twice. Whether it makes it down here or not, who knows? Um, but in general, we'd be looking for those attempts lower to fail so we can buy back into the range. So I'm okay being bullish, and I'm just looking for these failed shorts to try to test back into this range. And that's kind of what you see on the weekly. I guess you would have to be a little careful though, because we could be in a downtrend. And if we're in a downtrend, maybe we're looking at something like that, like we have right here. Um, you'd still be bullish, right? Because we're coming off the low side of this channel. But you just got to be careful. We might not be able to get much past that trend line. So you just have to watch for the bars when we get to that trend line. And then let's check out the daily. I figured I'd do the video on Monday this week just because nothing's really going on. It's kind of a slow day. So, you know. So on the daily chart, this is kind of what we were talking about, where we had the trend, a break outside, a move to a new low. So at this point, we'd be looking for some sideways action or a reversal. And you can see we had a couple bars that go a little sideways before they eventually start heading back the other way. And on the daily, you get this higher low trade right there, and that'd be a good trade. I wish we could have caught that real time. But that would have been a good trade, right? After the exhaustion play, higher low, just looking for it to come test support. Nothing too crazy. And I think what helps you stay in this trade is that as we're trending higher with these bars, really you're just looking for the first bear bar to actually close below the previous bar, and that's when you know that the buyers are losing momentum, and the market conditions are starting to change. Right? It was the same sort of situation over here where we're trending. This was the first bar to actually close above previous bars of this sort of shorter term trend, and then we get a little push, test the extreme, and then the reverse. So in the same way, we'd be looking for the same thing. Once we get a bar that closes below, we might expect a push, a test of an extreme, we might consolidate, reverse, and then depending on how strong the market is, maybe a continuation, but generally we'll get that consolidation before a continuation. So on the daily chart, there was a little trade right there. You would have had to sort of ignore what was going on the weekly chart, but that would have been a little easier given that the market structure was kind of a range and we just broke out. So we're always going to be expecting some kind of test of the support. And so that would have made that trade a little easier on that regard. So I think moving forward on the daily, all of this is still valid on the weekly. But on the daily, we just want to see how many more days we're going to get of bullish action. And then once we get that bear close, we'll draw our trend line, and then we'll look for the sort of like 2 legs back, a test of the high, and then from there we'll be able to see maybe by that test of the high we're near this midline or that other trend line I had earlier, and maybe we'll get that push back down. But for now, the bulls have the momentum, and we just got to see where they want to take it, how far they can take it. I'm sure tomorrow we'll see a lot of interesting price action right around 416, 15, somewhere around there. So that's what I see on SPY. Um, I guess there will be another trade on the daily chart. So let's say that as we're trending higher, if price breaks but can't close and kind of gives us that failed second entry short, that'll be a long trade. I'd be a little nervous because we have this trend and we haven't had a break test of the low of the trend, from the weekly. But you'll probably still be able to get like a 1-to-1 scalp on a failed second entry. We pushed past the EMA, so particularly if we test that EMA and then the buyers show back up, then you would buy above whatever bar is able to do that. So I think the next trade I think I'd be looking for is the failed second entry on the daily chart. On the daily chart. And you just have to be careful because anything could happen, and then you just have to kind of gauge what that means on the weekly. But I think on the daily that might be our next trade. Let's go to Bitcoin. Bitcoin weekly chart. So for the past couple weeks, I mean, it's been super dry on Bitcoin. See how the bars are getting small? Volume is drying up, liquidity is drying up. All of the same technical expectations are there. We're still going to look for a test of this support zone. All of that should still be in play. But there's just, taking a trade in this area, you're just doing like a 50-50. There's no edge. I mean, it could probably go down. It could probably go up. There's just no edge. I'm expecting some bullish momentum. See how far we are from the EMA. At some point, we're going to try to touch this EMA, but it could very well just go sideways until it finally meets. But there's no trade I'd really want to take, even though we have a like really, really small second entry long off this high. Tried to go higher once, pull back, and then right there we broke higher. So, there's a second entry long right there, but again, congestion bars, doji bars, that's not the trade we're looking for. So, if we get a pop here, you kind of just got to let it go without you. I think the strategy on Bitcoin is a little different, because of the quote unquote potential of the asset. In general, this is a decent place to buy. I probably wouldn't put in my full risk here. I could probably do like a quarter or maybe half. But purely off the technicals, it's just not a great technical setup yet. So we'll just wait to see what we get when we get it. If we go back to the daily chart, you'll see some little like scalps here and there. We're still in this range and all. So if we looked on the daily, we have a little swing low there. So the count can start from up here. We get a first entry. These are all inside bars. I can't really determine. Looks like we get first entry pullback, second entry, third entry, fourth entry. So none of these would have worked. So once I get past that second entry and I'm counting like a third entry, I just switch it up and I have to count off the low. So for this trade, you just count off the low. You'd look for like a higher low back down in here or something. But all that, we still have this trend and then a break. So we still could test these lows. So that'd probably be ideal if we can get some selling, test those lows, and then take the higher low down over here. That might be a good trade. That might be a good trade. But for now, it's so obvious that we're in like a congestion zone, there's really nothing to do on Bitcoin other than hold if you're just kind of waiting for the 100,000 mark, or wait until we get an actual, because the trend is down. We're clearly in a bear market. You know, we would expect some kind of selling around this area. Not guaranteed, but we'd expect it. So we'll look for the price action when it gets there. Or hopefully we sell off and then we get a little more room to buy until there. But even the buy down here is counter trend. So you gotta just, you gotta be careful. There's not a lot to do on Bitcoin that has edge right now. Let's go to gold, and we'll start off on the weekly. So gold on the weekly chart, same idea we've been working with. We had that really big bull bar, second entry long, failed, well, not quite a failed breakout yet, but anticipating a failed breakout of this congestion zone. Really weak follow through. It's pushing, but it's super weak on the weekly chart. That wouldn't really excite me. If you're in, you're in. If you're not, I don't know. It's just aggressive, and then you're in the middle of the overall range and stuff. It's super aggressive. Um, I think what we can use this as, let's see, if we had a micro trend here, this was the first time the bears took it down. The bulls brought it up. Now this is the second time the bears took it down. So I mean, yeah, it's aggressive, but you probably do want to look for longs here, at least to come and test this support. Um, Another thing I'd be looking for is that we started the trend off these two bars and price came all the way back down. So maybe there's a double bottom. So, you get like a double bottom, second entry long, and it hasn't moved so far that you would, that you can't still enter this long trade. And that's good and bad, because ideally it should take off. You don't want it to hang around too much. But if we were to plot the trade, let's say you did take that trade. If you go 1-to-1, I'd probably go just a little more than 1-to-1, like 1.1, just for your commissions and things like that. That's kind of the trade you're looking at. And that's good because, you'd get your exit right around the support. That's exactly where you would want to exit in the first place. So I think that trade makes sense. There's a part of me that's just very like not in love with it because we're in the middle of a bigger range, and this smaller range, we don't have to respect this smaller range when there's a bigger range in play. And the last place we touched was the high side. So like it's more likely to touch this side before it comes back and touches this side. So it's just a confusing entry. It's aggressive. It's kind of in no man's zone. But we do have this double bottom now. So maybe we'll get a triple test. That would be a little safer. Or you'll get like a failed break and then buy it down there like normal. But I do think there's a trade here. Just technically, there's a trade. It's super aggressive. I think the probability is it's a 50-50 sort of thing. But that would be how the trade would be set up. And you just have to wait until we get more price action. And then on the daily, let's see, on the daily, we get kind of the same bias, to be honest, because we do have this trend. So we get a trend, a breakout side. Ideally, we're going to get 2 attempts to go lower that can't get lower than this previous low. And then once we start closing above, then, that's where the bulls will really show up. But then if you look on, like, let me see if I can just make it a little easier. If you look, I have this short-term trend, right? So we have this trend. First break above right there, break outside, move to a new low. So now the bulls have the momentum. So right now, none of these bars have been able to close lower than the previous bar. So the bulls have the momentum. It's going sideways, so it could change at any moment. At any moment, and that's the thing about these trades. Like there's a failed second entry short right there. Right, once it broke above this bar, failed second entry short, you can go for a little scalp. But the momentum could change, and once we get that bear close, I'd be looking to tighten my stop and cover profits and things like that. Um, Especially that we're going sideways on the daily. Really small zone, and you could probably bring it up to these highs as well. But just a real small zone right there. You just got to be careful. It could probably break out both sides a couple times before it actually decides which way it wants to go. But for now, the momentum is with the bulls, and as long as we don't get that bear close, we'll just keep ticking up. So there's kind of two positions up in there that you might be able to justify taking. Um, Very aggressive justification here. And then this one was really only able, you're really only able to get the count off the weekly chart. There's not really a count on the daily chart. Yeah, so that's kind of how I'd be looking at that on the daily. And then even on the daily, we get the first push of the bears, a little bit of congestion. Second push of the bears, tried to go higher. There's a couple ways you could probably read this, but it'd probably be leg one, pause, leg two, and then now we're going to try and test. I don't have high conviction in either one of these positions. I don't have high conviction on any long-term trades right now. Really just focusing on scalps intraday because the market right now is kind of tough. But that's what we have on gold. So let's see if we get this continuation, and that will kind of let us know from there. So that's our main markets, short, sweet, to the point. Let's just, we're not going to cover Palantir today, Twitter, all that stuff. I feel like all that stuff is kind of played out. But let's stay on the daily time frame, and let's look just at what's hot. Let's just see if there's anything hot. I don't even know some of these markets, so it'll be interesting. Abadel, never heard of it. We get a big gap down. Doesn't always work when we're in a bear market, but the whole gap play. So we'll probably close this gap. Sometimes in bear markets, you don't really close that gap. You just shoot lower and it'll come back like eventually, but got to be careful with that. I feel like if we're looking for a trend, there's a trend there. Looks like it's there. Yeah. So that'd be the trend on what is that? Avadel? AVDL. That'd be the trend. That higher low is going to be really tempting coming off the low side of the channel, but I just don't want to do that. I just don't want to even encourage that. We want to get short. We want to really let the bulls push it wherever they can, break outside, test that extreme, and then we're going to start shorting it back down. So there will be aggressive longs, but fuck that. We're below the EMA in a downtrend. You're not looking for longs. It doesn't matter how sexy they look. And it worked over here. See the higher low over here? It worked. But you never know that. You never know that for sure. This is slightly different because we've already crossed the midline. So taking that higher low here is a little different. There was another higher low here. It would have worked. It didn't go that far, but it would have worked. And then again, anything on this side of the midline, I mean, that's just a completely different idea. So as long as we're on this bottom half, maybe, maybe, but just be careful. Be super careful. Let's move on. AMD. Let's talk about AMD. I should have some work on AMD already. Yeah. So on AMD, there's a potential short. Downtrend, we see that. We had just a little quick, you could really just call this congestion. It'd probably be better if you did, but if you don't, little short-term trend, broke outside, double bottom, made a new high, and then we started trending the other direction. And so you could take this line, at the time I was day trading, but you could take this line like that, and that's our new low. So the higher low is probably a decent trade. It'll go right into that EMA, unfortunately. But let's see what type of signal bar we get, and you might still want to take that. And then if you are looking at a congestion zone, maybe we're looking at something like that. So it's like a failed breakout. First entry. These are all inside bars, so maybe it's just like a first entry, then second entry, because that's all inside bars. Doesn't really count. I could skip that. So I'd be looking for the short on AMD actually, but we need a good signal bar. I don't want to see necessarily like an engulfing bar. I want to see a bar that leaves lip. And what I mean by lip is something like, hopefully I can find one with the short. Something like this, where its high is outside of the previous bar, but the low still leaves room to the low of this bar. Something like that. If we get a bar something like that, or a bar that looks like this, but the low still has room to the previous bar low, it's not like an engulfing, that'll probably be a good trade. So I like AMD for a short. I'll be looking for the short here. I don't like going past the daily, but like let's have some fun with it. On the daily chart, we're losing volume. See how we're starting to get small bars. But on this daily, I would say we had a congestion zone right there, right? Then we get a breakout, and then the first bear close right there, breakout, move to a new high. So as we start getting bear closes, we have to wait for the bear closes, and this is an hourly chart. As we get those bear closes, that's when you're going to look for that lower high, try to trade that back down. And ideally it's going to have a bear close, probably cross this EMA, then you get the lower high, boom, that would be the trade. So it's setting up for a short on AMD. I kind of like that. Europe, let's say Apple. Y'all care about Apple? Anybody care about Apple? Okay, Apple. Okay, everything's in a downtrend. I'm starting to like just repeat myself on that. I was doing some stuff day trading. Let me just clear it up so it's a little more visible. Again, same principles, right? Bear close, bear close, bear close, bear close. This was the first bull close. Get a little push, make a new low, and then now we're working higher. So even on Apple, right now, the bulls are in control. The bulls are pushing it higher. There's a gap right there. So got to be careful. There's a gap. We could easily close this gap and then boom. But I would just wait. Let's just see if we can get whatever happens. We're going to come up to this side and then start to short. Little congestion zone, and that work in our favor if we can get all the way up here before closing the gap and then get like a bear bar, then we'll just look to short it all the way back to this congestion zone, which was like kind of in here. So ideally, let it push up, break out, lower high, trade it back to this resistance. Let's just check out that hourly. Wait, it's like the same chart pattern. What is going on? Right? Am I tripping? It's the same, get this sort of big bar, first bear close, breakout, move to a new low, low volume, and then, yeah, looking for a little bit more room to the channel high on Apple. But I mean, essentially, it's like the same sort of congestion, breakout, low volume, creeper. And, sometimes these can be kind of strong because they're just creeping higher and higher. And it's so hard to trade because you don't get a lot of room to the previous high and stuff. But I would try to look at the overall market and not get tempted to go long. I would just wait until you start seeing your short setups. Those will probably be better. Nothing's 100% obviously, so it might not, but that's generally going to be a safer idea. And probably a leg 1 and then a leg 2. So 2 legs. We'll see what happens. There's a short-term uptrend. I don't know how much we care about it. Probably got something like there. So probably something there. So we really want to see, if we start getting bear bars and selling, it'd be a little aggressive. But really, we're just trying to close this gap and test the resistance. So you'll still be able to get a solid, maybe 1-to-1 sort of trade. Anything else? NVIDIA? Wow, it's like the same bar. What happened on the 26th? Oh, earnings? Well, Apple didn't have earnings, did it? Yeah, the whole market just responded the same on the 26th. At least the hot stocks. They all have that same, literally the same kind of pattern. So, and we're in a downtrend in all of these. So, just be careful. Be super careful. I would not get tempted into these longs. I would just try to wait, see if we at least come back to this EMA. That's probable. That's probable. Something random. Ford. It's a similar pattern, but it's not nearly as strong. And the hourly has so many gaps. Let's just back up and go into the daily chart. Nothing sexy. Downtrends. I don't see anything sexy. Nothing I'd really want to. First break, move to a new low, bulls are in control. So yeah, nothing great. In fact, during the week, a lot of these trades, they like this higher low, just because we had a double bottom. We had this low. There was a double bottom, and that would have been an okay aggressive trade, but that was during the week and stuff. I think even on NVIDIA, there's probably like that double bottom. Yeah, see, there's like this sort of double test, and then you get buying. And then I think I saw it on most charts. Not quite as clean on Apple. Went a little lower than the previous bottom. The same sort of concept, I would say. And that's really it. I was thinking about doing bar by bar again. Let me know if y'all would want bar by bar, but I would just do it on like TradingView, and I'd look at the either 3-minute or the 1-minute chart and just do like bar by bar. I don't know. If anyone who remembers the bar by bar videos gets to this point in this video, let me know if you want like a bar by bar. I was thinking about it. But that's what I see, y'all. Overall, the market is just kind of super indecisive. It's actually acting the exact way you would expect it to act. It's just freaky. Like it's just hard to actually take these positions. I think this higher low would have been an easy position, but that's kind of, you have the hindsight. It's a little, obviously it's easier 2020. Hindsight is 2020. So I mean, it's easier to say that now, but I think you could have really real time justified at least this trade. But I don't know about any of the other ones, especially the gold one. Although gold triggered 2 weeks ago. That trade triggered 2 weeks ago, so you would either have been in or you're not. We would have looked at it more like from this perspective for gold. So yeah, we'll see. It's been kind of dry, but again, this week I had like a pretty good week, and then I was back testing over the weekend and just couldn't fucking win a trade for the life of me, and that's just how the market is. I think sometimes your analysis is going to be like perfect, and then sometimes it's just really nothing that makes sense. And as a trader, being a professional trader, you got to be able to accept that and stay out of the market. I think too often we just like force trades because it's been 5 weeks and I haven't found a trade, so let me just buy this one even though it's not that great. Just try to avoid that shit. Just wait. Just wait, because you land one higher low like this one. What is that? You're easily getting 3 to 1. And we'll talk about how to manage it. But yeah, you could have got 3 to 1 on this. You get a 3 to 1 trade. And then depending on your risk and how much capital, man, you don't even need none of this other stuff. That's your trade. And you wouldn't have been able to hold that one. But if you would have bought this higher low, you would have held that one. So, just wait for your spots. Really, it's about waiting for your spot. It's not even about finding second entries, to be honest. It's about waiting for your spot. If you wait for the spot, then you're going to get the best probability on those positions. So even that is to say, with gold, then let's wait for our spots. And our spots are going to be here. Our spot is going to be here. Let's see, do I have a regular red? Let me just change the color of that. Ugh, I don't like that red. Okay, that's better. Yeah, these are our spots, right? This is everything else inside of here. It's just kind of like, yeah, maybe I might. Again, I would, if you really want to survive trading, wait for your spot. We're going to look for a short up here. We're going to look for a buy up here. If it takes 10 weeks to get there, fine. But that's really where we want to take these trades. I don't want to be a hypocrite. There's probably like a little like up there. Looks like there's a trend up there. Looks like there's a trend up here. So everything I said is true, but again, this is a key area as well. So, that's why I said this is a super aggressive, and that's why it's okay. But ideally, these are going to be the better spots, right? So yeah, we have that trend. So maybe that trend will do something. Yeah. So that's all we see, guys. I'm gonna go ahead and call it a wrap. 30 minutes. That's pretty decent. Yeah, and we'll be back next week. We'll do it again. Let's really see how this week goes. Enjoy some time off. I'm going to go to a barbecue here in a bit. Just get away from the screen. I've been like so drained just looking at this shit all weekend. But we'll be back next Sunday for sure. So until then, guys, trade safe, trade well, keep studying, and we'll see you then. Peace, y'all.